You walk out into your garden, pruners in hand. You see that dormant tree, that overgrown shrub, and you hesitate. You know you're supposed to prune in March, but where do you even start? One wrong snip, and you could ruin this year's flowers or fruit, right? Well, what if I told you that this exact fear is what's holding you back from having the healthiest, most beautiful garden on the block? Today, we're going to turn that hesitation into confidence. We're breaking down exactly how to prune in March, what to cut, what to leave alone, and we'll expose the common mistakes that even experienced gardeners make. Stick around because you're about to become a pruning master. So, why all the fuss about March? Why not January or April? The answer lies in the plant's life cycle. During the deep winter, plants are fully dormant, which is good, but the wood can be brittle from the cold. As March rolls in, the worst of the winter is usually over, but most deciduous trees and shrubs haven't woken up yet. They are still dormant. This is the sweet spot. Pruning now means the plant can dedicate its explosive spring energy to healing those cuts and pushing out new, healthy growth, exactly where you want it. It's like giving your plants a precise roadmap for the growing season before they even start their engines. This timing minimizes stress on the plant and maximizes the results you'll see in just a few months. Before we even talk about specific plants, let's establish the golden rule of pruning. It's a simple mantra you should repeat before every single cut you make, the 3 Ds. This stands for dead, damaged, and diseased. This is your number one priority. Scan your tree or shrub for any branches that fit this description. Dead wood is often dry, brittle, and might have peeling bark. Damaged branches are those that are broken from wind or snow, and diseased wood might look discoloured or have cankers and growths. Removing this material first isn't just for looks, it's a critical act of garden hygiene. It prevents diseases from spreading and allows the plant to focus its energy on healthy limbs, not on trying to support a lost cause. It also clears the clutter, so you can better see the plant structure. Now let's talk about your most important tool. For about 80% of your pruning tasks, you'll be reaching for a good pair of bypass hand pruners. Notice I said bypass, not anvil. Bypass pruners work like a pair of scissors, with 2 curved blades that slide past each other to make a clean cut. This is essential for the health of your plant. Anvil pruners, on the other hand, have 1 straight blade that crushes the branch against a flat surface. This can damage the plant's vascular system, leaving it vulnerable to pests and disease. So, invest in a quality pair of bypass pruners that fit comfortably in your hand. This is your primary weapon in the garden, and having a good one makes all the difference in the world. Think of it as a surgeon's scalpel versus a butcher's cleaver. What happens when a branch is just too thick for your hand pruners? Trying to force it is a great way to break your tool and damage the plant. This is where loppers come in. Loppers are essentially long-handled bypass pruners. Those long handles give you incredible leverage, allowing you to cut through branches up to 1 inch or even 2 inches in diameter with surprising ease. For anything larger than that, you need to graduate to a pruning saw. A good pruning saw has a curved blade and sharp teeth that are designed to cut on the pull stroke. This makes it much more efficient and safer than using a regular carpenter's saw. Having these 3 tools, pruners, loppers, and a saw, covers almost every situation you will encounter. Here is a secret that separates the amateurs from the pros: the condition of your tools. Using dull, dirty pruners is one of the worst things you can do. A dull blade doesn't slice through the wood. It tears and crushes it, creating a ragged wound that heals slowly and invites infection. Before you start your March pruning, take the time to sharpen your blades with a file or a specialized sharpener. It only takes a few minutes and makes the job so much easier and better for your plants. Equally important is cleanliness. As you move from plant to plant, you can unknowingly spread diseases on your blades. A simple wipe down with a cloth soaked in rubbing alcohol or a 10% bleach solution between plants will prevent this. A sharp, clean tool is a plant's best friend. Okay, you have your clean, sharp tool and you've identified a branch to remove. But where exactly do you make the cut? This is where many people go wrong. Look closely at where a branch meets the main stem, or a larger branch. You'll see a slightly swollen, wrinkled area. This is called the branch collar. The branch collar contains specialized cells that are designed to heal over a wound quickly. Your goal is to make your cut just outside this collar without damaging it. If you cut too far out, you leave a stub that will die back and rot. If you cut into the collar, a practice called a flush cut, you create a much larger wound that the tree struggles to heal. Nailing this technique is fundamental to good pruning. Find the collar and cut just beyond it. You've probably heard that you should always make your pruning cuts at a perfect 45-degree angle. This is one of those pieces of advice that is partly true but often misunderstood. The main idea behind an angled cut is to allow water to run off the surface, preventing rot. This is most important when you are cutting a stem back to a bud. You want the cut to be angled away from the bud so water doesn't pool on it. However, when you're removing an entire branch back at the main trunk, the angle is less important than its position, relative to the branch collar we just talked about. The tree knows how to heal that wound, regardless of the angle, as long as the collar is intact. So, focus on location first, and a slight angle for water runoff second. So, what plants are waiting with open arms for a good prune in March? The main category is summer flowering shrubs. These are the plants that form their flower buds on the new growth that will appear this spring. Think of plants like panicle hydrangeas, butterfly bush, and potentilla. Pruning them now in March while they are still dormant encourages them to produce a ton of new stems. And since the flowers form on those new stems, more stems mean more flowers later in the summer. You can be quite aggressive with some of these, cutting them back significantly to encourage a strong, vigorous framework for the season ahead. This is your chance to shape them and control their size without sacrificing a single bloom. Let's zoom in on one of the most beloved garden plants, roses. March is the absolute prime time to prune most types of roses, especially hybrid teas, floribundas, and grandifloras. Don't be timid here. The goal is to create an open, vase-like shape that allows for good air circulation, which helps prevent fungal diseases like black spot. You'll want to remove all of that dead, damaged, and diseased wood first. Then, take out any canes that are crossing over and rubbing against each other. Finally, shorten the remaining healthy canes, cutting them back to an outward-facing bud. A good rule of thumb is to cut them back by about 1/3 to 1/2 of their total height. This hard prune signals the plant to put out strong new growth that will be covered in beautiful blooms. Now we must address the plant that causes the most pruning confusion of all, the hydrangea. The key here is knowing which type of hydrangea you have. If you have a variety that blooms on new wood, like the panicle hydrangea or the smooth hydrangea, then March is the perfect time to prune. You can cut them back quite a bit to encourage new growth and a sturdy shape. However, if you have a variety that blooms on old wood, like the classic big leaf hydrangea, oak leaf, or climbing hydrangea, you must put your pruners down. These plants have already formed their flower buds for the coming season on last year's stems. If you prune them now, you will be cutting off all of your flowers. It's a costly mistake. March is also a fantastic time to prune many fruit trees, such as apples, pears, and cherries. The goals here are slightly different than with ornamental shrubs. You're pruning not just for health and shape, but also to maximize fruit production. The primary objective is to open up the canopy of the tree. You want to create a structure that allows sunlight and air to reach all parts of the tree. This helps the fruit to ripen evenly and reduces the risk of fungal diseases. You'll want to remove any crossing branches, weak or spindly growth, and any water sprouts, those fast-growing vertical shoots. This directs the tree's energy into producing high-quality fruit on the remaining strong, well-placed branches. When you're dealing with a young tree, your pruning goals in March are all about establishing a strong, long-term structure. This is called structural pruning. For most deciduous trees, the aim is to develop a single, dominant vertical stem called the central leader. You want to identify the strongest, straightest leader and remove or shorten any competing leaders that are trying to grow alongside it. This prevents the tree from developing weak, V-shaped junctions that are prone to splitting apart in storms later in life. You should also look for and remove any branches with very narrow angles of attachment to the trunk. A little bit of thoughtful shaping now pays huge dividends in the health and safety of the tree for decades to come. We've talked a lot about what to prune, but it's just as important to know what not to prune. The biggest category to avoid in March is the spring flowering shrubs and trees. These are the plants that burst into bloom early in the season, like forsythia, lilac, magnolias, rhododendrons and azaleas. Why? Because these plants, similar to the big leaf hydrangeas, form their flower buds during the previous summer and fall. Those buds have been sitting on the branches all winter, just waiting for the right moment to pop. If you prune these plants in March, you are literally cutting off this year's flower show. The proper time to prune these is immediately after they finish flowering in the spring. That gives them the entire growing season to produce new wood and set buds for next year. Let me tell you a sad but common story. A new homeowner sees their overgrown forsythia bush in March and decides to tidy it up. They get out their shears and give it a neat, round haircut. They step back, proud of their work. Then April and May arrive and all the neighbouring forsythias explode in a brilliant display of yellow, while theirs produces maybe 2 or 3 lonely flowers near the base. This is the tragedy of pruning spring flowering shrubs at the wrong time. It doesn't harm the long-term health of the plant, but it completely robs you of the reason you have it in your garden. The same goes for lilacs. If you want that beautiful colour and fragrance, wait until after the bloom to prune. One of the most common mistakes I see, especially with beginners, is the panic of over-pruning. You get into a rhythm, and suddenly you've removed half the plant. It's important to remember the general rule: never remove more than 1/3 of a plant's total mass in a single year. Pruning is a form of stress for the plant, and removing too much at once can shock it, leading to weak growth or even death. It's always better to prune less and come back next year to do a little more. Step back frequently as you work, look at the overall shape of the plant from a distance, and make deliberate, thoughtful cuts. Pruning is a marathon, not a sprint. Be patient and intentional. Let's revisit the anatomy of a cut for a moment to highlight another huge mistake: leaving stubs. This happens when you cut a branch too far away from the main stem or a side branch, leaving a little peg of wood sticking out. This little stub is a dead end. The plant cannot heal over it properly because it's too far from the active tissues in the branch collar. So, what happens? The stub begins to die, back and decay. This rot can then travel down into the healthy part of the plant, creating a pathway for insects and diseases to enter the main trunk. It's like leaving an open wound that can never close. Always take the extra second to make your cut clean and close to the point of origin, without leaving that telltale stub. Here's a tip that has more to do with timing than technique. Avoid pruning in wet or damp weather. It might seem harmless, but pruning on a rainy day can be a big problem for plant health. Many plant diseases, especially fungal and bacterial infections, thrive and spread in moist conditions. When you make a fresh cut, you are creating an open wound. If that wound is immediately exposed to a wet environment, it becomes the perfect entry point for these pathogens to infect your plant. It's much safer to wait for a dry day to do your pruning. This gives the fresh cuts time to begin drying out and starting the natural callousing and healing process before they are exposed to disease-spreading moisture. Patience for a dry day is a simple but effective preventative measure. What about evergreen trees and shrubs like pines, spruces and arbor vitae? Do they follow the same March pruning rules? The answer is mostly no. Most evergreens have a very different growth pattern. Many, especially conifers, grow from the tips of their branches. If you cut a branch back to a point where there are no needles, it will not regrow from that point, leaving a permanent bare spot. Major structural pruning on these is best left to professionals. For most homeowners, the only pruning needed in late winter or early spring is to remove any dead or damaged branches. Any light shaping or shearing is typically done later in the spring or early summer, after the initial flush of new growth has appeared. Let's clarify two terms that are often confused: thinning and topping. Thinning is a healthy pruning practice. It involves removing entire branches back to their point of origin, either at the main trunk or another large branch. This opens up the plant, improves air circulation, and maintains the plant's natural shape and structure. Topping, on the other hand, is a very harmful practice. This is the indiscriminate cutting of branches to stubs to reduce a plant's size. It creates a host of weak, poorly attached new sprouts and large wounds that the tree cannot heal. It ruins the plant's natural form and ultimately makes it less safe. Never top a tree. If a tree is too large for its space, the proper solution is thinning, or in some cases removal. After you make a nice clean cut on a larger branch, you might be tempted to apply some kind of pruning paint or wound sealer. For decades, this was common practice. The thinking was that it would protect the wound from insects and disease. However, modern research has shown that this is not only unnecessary, but can actually be harmful. These sealants can trap moisture against the wood, creating the perfect environment for rot and fungal growth to develop. They also interfere with the tree's natural ability to form a callus and compartmentalize the wound. The best thing you can do for a pruning cut is to make it correctly in the first place, just outside the branch collar, and then let the tree take care of itself. It has been healing its own wounds for millions of years. So there you have it. The fear is gone, replaced by a simple set of rules. Remember the key takeaways. March is the magic window for dormant pruning of summer flowering plants and fruit trees, but a danger zone for spring bloomers like lilacs and forsythia. Your best friends are sharp, clean tools. Always find that branch collar and remove the 3Ds first: the dead, damaged, and diseased wood. And finally, never remove more than 1/3 of the plant at once. By following these guidelines, you're not just cutting branches, you are actively sculpting a healthier, more productive, and more beautiful garden for the entire year to come. Thank you so much for watching. If this video helped you gain some confidence, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more gardening guides. Now I have a question for you. What is the one tree or shrub in your garden that you are most nervous about pruning this March? Let me know in the comments below. Let's talk about it.